Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Offsides. I'm Sophia Lipp.
And I'm Nick Neville. Today we'll take an in-depth look at some of the newest rule changes to the NHL and how they're already affecting this season's action.
And our MLB analyst will discuss everything from a record-breaking season for the Chicago Cubs and its ace starter Jake Arrieta to whether or not America's pastime should make more rule changes like the NHL has done. All this and more, Offside starts right now. I'm joined now by our NHL analyst Jessica Citronberg to talk about some major controversies surrounding the beginning of the NHL season. So let's jump right into it. This season's new change in overtime from 4-on-4 to 3-on-3 has hockey fans questioning whether or not this is going to make overtime better. All right, Jess, do you think that this is a reasonable and fair change, or does it take away from the intensity of hockey's overtime?
I think that the 3-on-3 overtime is definitely going to improve the game. It gets people playing more hockey rather than the shootouts. I think with the 4-on-4 overtime, it was definitely going into shootouts more times than it should have. And I think the 3-on-3 will definitely get the guys playing more hockey.
Absolutely. And I agree with you. I don't think that shootouts are a really good indicator of which team deserves to win. I think it's really a kind of luck of the draw. So we'll move on to our next topic, which is actually about another new rule where coaches can challenge plays. Being the fast-paced game that hockey is, do you think that challenges add a more complex dimension to it?
I think that the coach's challenge is definitely going to be interesting in the NHL. I know that Mike Babcock of the Maple Leafs, he won the first coach's challenge from goalie interference, and I think that being able to review the goalie interference and being able to challenge that is definitely going to be great for the league.
Another interesting add-on is that a coach can only challenge if their team still has a timeout, and if the challenge is rejected, they forfeit their timeout. Should timeouts and challenges be conjoined like this?
I think that timeouts should definitely be involved in the challenging. I think it'll make coaches think, should I challenge, should I not? Because there's definitely a big consequence to challenging and losing it.
Absolutely, and in the NHL, timeouts don't make a big part of the game like, let's say, the NFL. So this is a different turn on it that I think will be very interesting in the season as it comes. It looks like that's about time for us to wrap up, but thanks for your insight, Jess.
And now time for some MLB. In Game 2 of the NLDS, Dodgers infielder Chase Utley slid very late into Mets shortstop Ruben Tejada in an attempt to break up a double play. Tejada broke his leg and is out for the remainder of the postseason, while Utley has been suspended 2 games by the league. Many are saying the side was a dirty play, including former Braves player Chipper Jones. Quote, "Quite frankly, it was a little unnecessary, to be honest with you. When you're going airborne to get a guy, to me that's out of bounds." End quote. I'm here with MLB analysts Ryan Preventure and Marissa Njemi. So after hearing Chipper's remarks, is it time to finally eliminate takeout slides like this from baseball? Marissa?
The problem I have with the takeout slide is that he created a Buster Posey play after he broke his leg and was injured on a slide to the plate. So why is it any different when it comes to middle infielders? It's dangerous. It's not safe. Tejada's out. It's his second broken leg now. And I agreed with the suspension mostly because I thought it was safe to not have Utley in that game. It could have been a very high-end situation there. It could have been dangerous. Mets fans were already calling for throwing at his head. It was the wrong play with the right suspension, and I think Major League Baseball handled it properly, but they have to do more to get rid of those takeout slides in general.
Exactly, and after that Buster Posey play, we had the Buster Posey rule. Are we going to have the Chase Utley rule, Ryan?
No, absolutely not. It's such a gross overreaction to the play, and it's an injury-based reaction, just like the Buster Posey play. You see this slide all the time. We saw it earlier in the season when Chris Coughlin on the Cubs took out Jung-Ho Kang on the Pirates, and he was out. He had an injury, no suspension. So
right,
why now in the playoffs are we going to have a suspension? In a best-of-5 series, you're going to suspend a player for 2 games?
You're trying to protect these players, I think. I would lean more towards Marissa's take on this because you're trying to protect these players. It's their livelihood.
But it's part of the game. That's
maybe it
when
should
you're a
be.
base runner. When you're a base runner, your goal is to not get out.
But he wasn't
and to
even close
make
to the
sure
base.
it doesn't matter. That's part of the game. If you've ever played the game, that's just what it is. You do not want to get out when you're on the base paths, and you don't want your player running down the first base line to get out. You're taking that guy out.
You also don't want players breaking their legs. So I think if you set this precedent in a postseason game, it's going to create something that.
But the MLB has never set a precedent for suspending a player for this. And if there's no precedent, then why should they start now?
Well, I mean, we'll have to see what the MLB does with that moving forward. Speaking of the playoffs, though, the Cubs are currently surging after 97 regular season wins and a historic season from ace Jake Arrieta, which has everyone in the nation screaming, "Go Cubs, go!" and not just on the north side of Chicago. So despite masterful seasons from Clayton Kershaw, Zach Greinke, and others, does Arrieta's dominance on the mound and ability to rally the city together make him this year's Cy Young?
Well, Nick, at least this is a lighter topic.
Not too many arguments about this one.
So I don't think that Arrieta deserves a Cy Young, though. I'm going to give it to Zach Greinke.
Okay, why?
You got to start with the numbers first. That 860, 864 winning percentage is just insane. And then you look at the ERA, the WHIP, leads the NL in both of those. And when you're a pitcher, your objective is to not let runs score and not let runners on base.
And he certainly did
that's
that.
what he did. So how do you not give it to him, right? So.
Right, I mean, he also had that crazy scoreless streak.
Even
Marissa,
better.
how about you? What do you think?
I wouldn't argue Zach Greinke, but to me it's Jake Arrieta. The season he had, some of the numbers he put up were unprecedented. His .75 ERA since the beginning of August is the best ERA since the dead ball era in that time frame. He won 22 games. He was one of the most valuable players down the stretch in the entire National League or Major League Baseball in general. He led the Cubs to a historic season, and they're in the playoffs now. They're going to the NLCS, and Arrieta is a huge part of that. While Greinke did have a spectacular season, I would just say Arrieta was just more valuable to his team.
Right, and he also has Kershaw and behind him, too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Lester was supposed to be this big signing, and when he came in, it didn't really work out as well as they would have hoped. So Arrieta's been a savior for them.
One thing I'll say about Arrieta, if there was such thing as a most valuable pitcher award, I would give that to Arrieta.
Now we're just making up awards.
I know, but so maybe I would give him more MVP votes than I would Cy Young votes. Well,
Right.
though he might still be too. I just think that Greinke is the better pitcher.
Right,
Just
and-
you look at his stuff; they both have great stuff. But you look at Greinke's stuff, and he's just a better pitcher.
Well, if we're going to go by best pitcher, it would be Clayton Kershaw then, and he didn't have
300
the season either of
strikeouts.
them had. Yeah.
Well, I guess he's not in the discussion today.
It's tough. So
he's been in it way too long now. He's got to get knocked out sometime.
too many different Cy Young candidates. But one last MLB topic. Recently, the MLB implemented rules to speed up the pace of play this season, but only shortened game times by an average of 6 minutes. Should Commissioner Rob Manfred do more to shorten the time of games? Marissa?
I think Major League Baseball has this weird obsession with getting rid of more of itself. They want to cut down games played. They want to cut down the time. And I don't understand necessarily why. I get there's a whole audience thing. The audience is younger. People don't want to sit through a baseball game. But at the same time, if you look at attendances across Major League Baseball, it's not down because of pace of play. There are some markets that historically just don't do well. Like, pace of play is not going to save Tampa Bay. And
No one goes to those games anyway. It's
I don't
hard,
care
yeah.
what's going on there. No one's going to Tampa Bay Rays games or Miami Marlins games for that matter. But look at attendances across Major League Baseball. The Toronto Blue Jays were in the top 10 for attendances this year. Historically, they're under the top 15. Now, why is the difference? They're good this year. And you see how it works for some of these teams. I don't think pace of play is really as big of a deal as they make it out to be a lot of the time. I understand the point of it. And maybe implementing the 20-second pitch clock rule might make some sense. Some of the stuff they tried with
Right,
the
they did
Arizona
that in
Fall League.
AAA.
Right.
Yeah, and the Arizona Fall League did a lot of weird experimentation itself, some of which worked out, some of which were just made the game kind of weird and really didn't do enough. So I think unless they have a real system in place that makes a lot of sense and doesn't take away from the game, it really doesn't make as much sense as they're making it out.
Well, the reason why there's the obsession is because, I feel like I've said this about every sports league a million times. It's a business.
They're trying
to make money,
Yeah, that's the main
and
objective,
if you
for
don't
sure.
get viewers, you don't get people in the seats, they're not going to make money, and that's just how it works. So they need to shorten the games because that's what they feel like is going to work.
The average baseball fan isn't going to sit 3 hours and watch a game.
He's just not. However, they took that 6 minutes off, and then you go, and in AAA this year, they got 15 minutes on average off of a game. You put that together, 20 minutes, that's like an inning right there.
With the pitch clock, then maybe more people who aren't those avid baseball fans are going to be watching.
Yeah.
Well, that's all we have for MLB today. Thanks, guys. That's it for this week's episode of Offsides. Come back next week for a special NBA preview show. And be sure to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Offsides10.
If there are any topics you'd like to see our analysts debate, send us an email at offsides10@gmail.com.
On behalf of our executive producers, Justin Akiva, Josh Gutchis, and Jada Montemorano, and the entire casting crew, thanks for watching, and have a good night, everybody.
Good night.